we've been talking about how the zodiac and the signs of the constellations fits in with this. And I said in the beginning that if you can imagine the constellations, there's 48 constellations out there, and it's like a tabernacle in heaven for the sun and for the planets. And it also speaks of the gospel. We've shown that in previous messages. But we've also seen that every chapter we can take the equivalent. This one is the 11th constellation. They're numbered. Here's the 11th one. It happens to be the sign of Pisces. Those two fish are supposed to represent the offspring of Noah. If you'll remember when we talked about that bigger fish in a previous lesson, we said that big fish represented Noah, and we saw those 8 people that were at the bottom there. I don't know if you can remember that. But anyway, you can go back to a previous one. You see where we talked about Noah. Well, these fish were supposed to be the children of the big fish. They're supposed to represent those who are the offspring of Noah. Well, what would be the offspring of Noah? Everybody on the earth. However, so it represents, for one place, it represents everybody on the earth. But let's read what it says here. Up there at the right, it says, it's a well-known fact that this particular sign of Pisces had represented the nation Israel, not only among the Jews, but also among the ancient Gentile nations as well. One of those reasons is because, remember, Israel was divided into 2 nations. You had Judah, which was the southern kingdom. You had the 10 kingdoms, the 10 tribes up in the north was considered Israel. And so that sign represented Israel, not only in Israel, but also among all the Gentile nations. But I think more than representing Israel and Judah, think about this. What if it represents Israel and the Gentile church that came in? Think about that. It could represent the whole righteous people of God. Because it all has to represent the children of Noah, which would encompass all of them. But let's look at this here. The figure represented here is that of 2 large fish being bound together by a band attached to their tails. In fact, this band was actually a constellation in and of itself. But this band showed that these 2 were somehow supernaturally connected together. Now, Israel and Judah was supernaturally connected. But let me submit this to you. The church is also connected to Israel. No matter how much the churches that came out of the Reformation, how much they missed the point calling themselves Israel. Israel is still favored by God, and the church is connected to them because of this scripture here, Romans 11:7. Remember, the church is actually grafted into Israel. They get their identity. They get their blessing. They are entered into the covenant because they're grafted into Israel. We see that in Romans 11:17. It says, if some of the branches be broken off, and thou being a wild olive tree, that's the Gentiles, were grafted in among them, and with them partakest of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. All that's saying is that the Gentiles were outside the covenant of God, and they were taken and they were added and included into Israel's covenant and connected together. But notice about this band, it not only says that they're attached together, but the band is also attached to the sea monster Cetus, showing that it is the monster that keeps both the fish bound. Well, who is this monster Cetus? Well, we're going to see that. Now you can see the whole thing. You not only see the fish, but you see the 2 fish bound with the band, and here they're attached to the sea monster. This sea monster literally represents the same thing we see in Revelation chapter 13. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, I saw a beast rise up out of the sea. The people are bound by the enemy. Both the fish are bound by the enemy. You see here on the side here concerning the Greek myth. In the Greek myths, the monster represented Typhon, the fiercest monster of all, having 100 heads, with each head speaking a different tongue. According to the myth, this great monster had rushed towards Olympus to destroy the kingdom of heaven. None were able to overcome the monster except the promised seed that was to come. The promised seed that was to come. We'll see him in a little while, but he's right up here. He's Perseus. Notice, though, the two fish, if it represents Israel and the Gentiles that are all bound by the monster, they're all bound by this band. Notice who breaks the band is the ram. You see his leg coming, and he's swatting the band. He's going to break it and set them free. And that shows the gospel coming out of that picture. The next slide actually shows that woman. You can see the two fish up there. You see how the one fish goes up and there's a woman chained. It's called Andromeda. Here's Andromeda by herself. She's got chains on her hands. The constellation Andromeda is represented in the myths as a beautiful virgin who has been helplessly bound, both hands and feet, to a rock to be offered up as a sacrifice to the great sea monster Cetus. So the chains that she has her bound to be offered to that monster. Among these stars within the marvelous constellation is Mara, which means the weak and afflicted. This is describing this person. Other stars that we find within the constellation are named Al-Amak, located in the left foot, and Al-Fitrats, the brightest star being located in the woman's head, which means struck down and broken down. In Hebrew, the woman represented within the constellation is called Sirah and Persea, meaning chained and stretched out. And then there are stars Adil and Al-Mariah, Arabic, both which mean the afflicted, and Mizrah, which means the weak. Here we, of course, all that, describes those constellations according to the myth. But what we see here bound, this woman bound, what is the woman bound? The woman bound is us. Whether we're Gentile or whether we're Jew, we are the bride that is bound, and only one person can break the bounds and set us free. Jesus, here's a scripture from Luke chapter 13, verse 16 says, "And ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound, be loosed from this bond?" You can see the gospel coming out of this. Think of yourself as this chained woman, which only Jesus comes to set free. And then the last slide, the deacon slide, is the sign of Cephas. And you can see the constellation Cephas was represented here, that of a glorious king who is seated upon his throne, having his left foot under the polar star, being adorned in a beautiful robe, wearing a glorious crown of stars, holding the royal scepter in his hand. According to the Egyptians, his name is Pekur, which means this one cometh to rule. The more common name by which this constellation is called is Cephas, which means the royal branch. How many remember through prophecy, reading through the prophets about the royal branch, or the branch coming? That's the Messiah. The branch coming. Here's the scripture, Revelation chapter 17, verse 14. Remember this? "For he is the Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called the chosen and the faithful." The gospel story is that this woman is chained and bound to the enemy, and the Redeemer comes, the Savior, the Messiah comes. He kills the enemy, looses the bonds, and takes the woman into heaven. He sits on a throne, and she, as his bride, sits there on his side as a glorious queen. Actually, the constellation sitting right next to Cephas in the sky is Cassiopeia. How many have heard of Cassiopeia? She's the glorified woman. She's actually the same woman we'll see in Revelation 12 when we see a woman in heaven, 12 stars around her head and the moon under her feet.